Hello, and welcome to another episode of Johnsequitur. I'm here again with Shagg.
Hi, everybody.
Today we're going to talk about, what are we talking about?
Well, we had originally discussed talking about the pros and cons of legalization of marijuana.
Okay.
But the pros and cons I had found, well, the cons of legalization of marijuana were almost nil. I had found so much information on the pros of legalization of marijuana that go so much further than just health benefits, extending into financial benefits and economic benefits as well.
Absolutely. I keep seeing these memes online about, they wanted to make it illegal and now they want to tax it.
Yeah,
so
exactly. First they want to make it illegal, and now they want to be the drug dealers.
Yep.
So,
yep. So what kind of pros did you find out?
Some of the pros that I had found of legalization of marijuana are, pretty cliche. Getting rid of the back alley drug dealers, enhancing the quality of the marijuana. By legalizing it, you allow research to be opened up and allow these laboratories to actually learn as much as they can about marijuana, so they can actually study the health benefits of marijuana. And the biggest one is revenue, tax revenue, and another one is medical availability of THC and CBD. There have been studies that have proven that there are cures, that they do cure epilepsy, multiple sclerosis, PTSD, cancer, stuff like that. And to open up marijuana legally will allow the expansion of those studies.
First of all, I think I looked up the wrong thing, but this is totally related to what we're talking about here. Basically, I looked up the psilocybin research stuff, and it's almost the exact same thing. Anytime they make a drug illegal, it becomes almost impossible to study the effects on people. So opening it up, psilocybin apparently can help with addiction is the big one.
Yes.
So, and I know marijuana helps with pain relief. I just happen to know that. So,
psilocybin is from what people like to call quote-unquote magic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
That is another compound that, like you said, it's supposed to help with depression and anxiety and stuff like that, but there again, the legality of the issue kind of restricts any studies that can be done on it to discover its full potential benefits.
Right. In the 40s, they were doing tests on this, and they did tests all the way to, I think, let me look, the 60s. And in the early 1970s, they shut it down completely, which that means there's 30 years, almost 30 years of research that we have to catch up on now?
Yes.
But it's slowly coming back, so that's encouraging.
Speaking of it coming back, it's coming back in a very profound manner. In today's economy, it is one of the fastest growing businesses, not only in this country, but in the world. In this country alone, it is a multi-billion-dollar business. Whether we're talking about keeping it illegal or legal, either way, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. I wrote down some facts of some numbers of how much it costs every year. Roughly, let's see. 17.4 billion estimated total amount that marijuana prohibition costs the state and federal governments every year, according to a 2010 study by Harvard University. Colorado distributed $230 million to the Department of Education between 2015 and 2017. And in those 2 years alone, that's $230 million in just 2 years. Now, if we were to have gone back 40 years and kept this legal, imagine how much more funding we could have given our schools. Imagine where our schools would be. Imagine how our literacy rate and all this would be in our schools, how many students would be graduating, whereas, how many students are dropping out of school nowadays because they don't have any interest. that money can be put towards schools to keep them interested and keep funding new programs. So,
did you happen to find any information as to why this kind of stuff was made illegal, like the specifics of it?
I found a lot of information, and a lot of what I found was biased and politically untrue. Like the drug campaigns, they say that marijuana is a gateway drug. Now, I don't know whether or not I should admit this, but in my time I have smoked marijuana. That being said, I have never once smoked marijuana and thought, well, hey, I'm going to go out and do heroin now.
It's coke time.
Yeah, I've never once thought that. That's never been, the next step. Now that I have my CDL, I can't smoke marijuana. But if it does become recreational legal on a state or even federal level, I'm at the point where I would almost give up my CDL, not because I want to get high all the time,
right,
but because smoking marijuana helps with my appetite and sleep. Smoke a joint before bed or before I eat to help increase appetite, to help me sleep at night, stuff like that.
Right. You mentioned state and federal level, and that's one of the problems that some of the places are one of the states that made it legal are facing, is that it's legal on a state level, but because it's not legal on a federal level, some people can lose their job over this.
Absolutely. And one of the ironic things that I have found is that while it is, yes, legal in several states, it's also legal in the District of Columbia. But there's where the main office of the DEA is, where it's federally illegal. And it just baffles my mind that, you're keeping it illegal, but right outside your door, people are smoking pot, not just to get high, but for actual medical legitimate reasons.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I work for the government, and we're pretty retarded like that. So.
I mean, the government does make a lot of questionable decisions. So.
I saw the other day, and unrelated to this particular topic, but I love going off topic. I saw the other day that a lot of people were not getting their benefits. I can't remember exactly where this was from, if this was from the Army or soldiers or something. They weren't getting their benefits, and it was because the computers that did the benefits for these people were super old. And everybody's like, that can't be right. I can tell you it has to be correct, because what we currently do, I do federal retirements.
Okay.
We're using technology from the 70s.
Okay.
Still, and we will not change it. We'll do all kinds of other ridiculous things, like put money towards really odd campaigns and stuff, but we will not change the technology or update it because we don't have it, air quotes, in the budget. So we're slow at everything, the government, and we're really slow at this. This should have been done many years ago. But it is encouraging that it's starting to happen now. So
it is, and I think as the years go on, I think there's 13 or 14 states now that have medical and recreational. Mm-hmm. But that goes back to the funding, where you say everybody's slow with keeping up with everything. Mm-hmm. Another fact I wrote down was the federal government could generate roughly about $131 billion over the next 8 years if they legalize marijuana, whether it be a recreational or medical, in all 50 states. That's $131 billion you could put towards our roads, our infrastructure, our schools, our hospitals. But again, the likelihood of that happening is going to be slow, because the older generation is still stuck on the, for lack of a better term, the DARE program education. They have this belief that marijuana is an evil drug. And as we see more and more states legalizing for medical reasons and recreational reasons, and more studies being done, we're seeing that marijuana isn't the evil drug that we've always been told it is.
Right.
There's actual medical benefits to it.
Absolutely. I just had a question in my head. I should have wrote it down. Okay. Do you have any information on what this would do to the prison systems and the population in the prison systems? Because I bet it would go down.
I didn't write anything specific down, but there have been several states that have thrown in the legislature ideas to pardon people that have been arrested for drug use. Let's see. Bear with me a second.
It's all good.
As far as the prison system, marijuana seized between 2000 and 2003 was just about 10.5 million pounds every year. Now, that's 46.1% of all arrests, drug-related arrests. We could cut that number in half. That's less money that we would be spending on incarcerating prisoners, less money that we would be spending to keep prisoners fed and clothed and a roof over their head. We could be spending that money on, again, all sorts of different things that could rebuild our infrastructure and all that. Some other figures I wrote down: 60% of the nation is in favor of legalization for one reason or another. So,
you've yet to name anything that I find to be negative in this whole thing. Like, I know I'm kind of biased on this, but it's nonsense, and it's one of those things where you just keep it the way it is because that's the way it is. And you almost have to wait for the dinosaurs to die before you can start pushing forward towards something that's pretty plainly a positive thing.
And as time goes on, that's more what we're seeing. The younger generation is starting to realize that, hey, the older generation was full of shit. Excuse my language. But even some of the older generation is starting to come around as they pay attention to these studies that are done. They're starting to learn themselves that there are vital benefits.
I almost feel like this is slowed down because the people who, were like, let's make this a big thing, let's make this illegal, or like, these studies are starting to show that we were really fucking wrong, so let's just try to drag this out as long as we can so that it becomes further and further away from when we decided that this was going to be wrong, so that, but when, it's all legal, people forget that we were full of shit.
Well, in my research, I've found just an endless list of facts. But going back to the whole financial aspect of legalization of marijuana, in the first 4 years of legalization, Colorado collected approximately $597 million in taxes. That's in taxes alone, not including the actual profit.
By the way, the craziness that people thought was going to happen when legalization happened. It didn't happen. There was no riots. There was no crazy crime going on.
No.
Nothing increased like that.
No. In the first 4 years of legalization, Washington collected almost $657 million in taxes. That's $1.9 billion roughly between two states alone. Again, you go back to legalization in all 50 states, you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars.
Think of the size of the missiles we could make.
Exactly. Size of the missiles we can make. Total U.S. marijuana demand between legal and the black market is roughly $52.5 billion annually. So, and to expand on the benefits, whether not really so much the financial aspect anymore, but the total number of job postings for cannabis industry increased 445% in 2017 alone. So again, this is a industry that's exploding exponentially, not just for the industry itself, but for the jobs that it's offering, for the mom and pop shops that are benefiting off of people smoking marijuana recreationally, and so there's all sorts of benefits, and it doesn't just limit to the medical, recreational, and financial. So I am absolutely 100% in favor for legalization of marijuana.
I think nowadays, outside of people in their maybe 70s, it might be very difficult to find anybody who is against it. I mean, I haven't talked to one yet, and I work with some pretty stuck-up people, as in very straight edged, and they're still I still don't see why this isn't legalized. I just can't. Nobody's given me a reason as to why, other than the old belief that it's like a gateway drug, like you said.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's studies on that, but I don't believe that there's any evidence to back that statement up at all.
In my research, one thing I have found is that it's not necessarily marijuana that's the gateway drug. It's alcohol that's the gateway drug. Again, going back to Colorado, once they legalized marijuana, they actually saw a decrease in the number of DUIs and domestic violence in their state, and that was in the first year alone. So,
I know this is kind of a warped comparison, but I don't even know if it is a comparison. But I mean, alcohol causes death and pain and all kinds of shittiness, and it's been legal for over almost 100 years, I guess, because of prohibition. But I'm not sure when that ended.
I think year. 1920 or.
Yeah. So it's close to 100 years it's been legal, and the effects of it are just staggeringly negative, honestly. And the effects of marijuana are staggeringly positive.
Yes.
So,
that's one thing I had also found in my research, was that a lot of time people use marijuana to help them recover from addiction of alcohol or other drugs. It eases their suffering. It eases their mental instability, as far as like they need this, they need that alcohol, they need this heroin. And a lot of soldiers I read online in my research are using marijuana for post-traumatic stress disorder. So.
Oh yeah, it calms you down. Not that I know anything about that, but all right. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
Sweet. I think that's going to wrap this one up. I was supposed to find something for you to look up. I didn't.
That's fine.
So we can brainstorm here, but we'll be back with another one. If you want, you can come on here anytime you want. This is great.
Awesome.
So, okay, go smoke weed every day. I'll plug that, John. Put that in there.
Smoke weed every day.